Hi, it's Luther Weeks, and here we are at the Connecticut Citizen Election Audit Coalition World Headquarters. And I want to thank you for offering to be part of creating the data entry, which is an important part of our function after every audit. And we're committed to transparency and openness. So what we do is we take the official audit reports, we do data entry on those official audit reports, and we do the best job we can possible in collecting that data accurately. Then what we do is we display it to the public so they can see both the data that we have compiled and the data submitted by the election officials from around the state. So I just wanted to mention a couple things before we start, and that is this is a new improvement to our data entry application to provide the ability for several people, without having to talk to each other constantly, to work together and do the data entry and check and validate it at the same time, or not at the same time, to check and validate it over the cloud as well as we input it over the cloud. So I made some changes to the application. So I'm not a perfect programmer nor a perfect tester. So my expectation is we'll have some small errors in the software, and maybe we'll have some big errors. So I'm going to commit to correcting any big errors, those that prevent us from doing our job or cause real hassles. Maybe some small errors we'll overlook and correct those before the next election. So if you have any problems, if you don't understand the video or you run into problems, certainly email me or call me up and let's talk about them. I'm committed that this process works, and I'm very appreciative of your volunteering to help get the data entry accomplished. It probably takes 15 minutes to a half hour per district to do the data entry, and we have 66 districts to do after this election. So several people make it into light work. So let's get started, and thanks again. Okay, I wanted to show you a little bit about our screen and what the ultimate goal is of the data entry process. So what we're looking at is a completed data entry for the town of Montville in their district of the town hall gym. We can see this in that little window here, which is a pull down, and it also says Montville Town Hall Gym over here on our screen. Now, to do the data entry, you pretty much need a wide screen to make it easy to do. In this case, we have a screen that has 3 sections on it. It's actually designed so you only have to really be able to view 2 of the 3 sections at once to do everything that's necessary. So let's start with the center screen, and then we'll look at the right-hand screen. The center screen has images of the official audit report as submitted to us or to the Secretary of the State for the towns. So in this case, Montville has 1 district, but it has 2 different pages of their audit report, page 2 and page 1. And what has happened is someone has entered all the data from those 2 pages, and the data that's been entered is in our database. And in the right-hand screen is all of the data that's been input. So it has all of the candidates. In this case, some are cross-endorsed. All of the Republicans are cross-endorsed, and the Democrats were not. And it has all the totals over here and all the data entry information. And if I were to try and verify the information for the person that did the data entry, I could compare the center screen to the right-hand screen line by line to see that the information was correct. Now going over to the left-hand side, we see a screen with the 3 offices that were on the audit report, and the data for these have already been entered into the system. And the Board of Education is what we see on this particular image in the center window. If we select Board of Education here, we get a list of candidates for the Board of Education. And then if we select any one of those candidates, we get the data in a data entry form, so that if there was an error, we could go in and change the data here and once again save the votes, and that would also automatically save the data on the far right-hand screen. So what we're going to do now is go back and take a look at Montville as it was with no data put in and do the entire data entry job for this particular district in Montville. So the first thing that you need to do is get your password and ID. Your ID is your email, and I should have sent you a link to the data entry site, which is actually the same site as we use when people sign up to observe the audits. What you do is choose the admin login link, and it asks for your email address and password. You get your password by going to the link that says email a new password. So you go there and you type your in to that and click the button that says send password. And then a few minutes later in your email inbox, or maybe you have to check your spam, there should be an email with the password that you use to get into the site. If for any reason you don't get a password within a few minutes, try it again, and if it doesn't work, either call or email me and I will get you a password. So let's go, and I will log in. I'm going to log in, put in my password, and I get to the data entry and verification screen. And today we are going to put in the data for the town of Montville. Montville was a relatively simple audit, but on the other hand, it covers some of the interesting features of the election input. The first thing we want to do is to put in the candidates and the offices that were audited. And we can see from the Montville audit that there are 2 pages of the report, the audit report. Board of Education, the ZBA, and the BAA, which I've forgotten exactly which office that is. It's not that relevant. Also, they have described the parties of each of the candidates, and several are cross-endorsed, and that's another reason I picked Montville. If it didn't have the party names, or we were having trouble spelling the candidates because of the writing on the audit report, then we could go to this image, this link up on the top of the screen that says ballot images. We can right-click on that and open in a new window or new tab the Secretary of State's site with the ballots for each of the towns, and we could go to Montville, and look at the ballots for Montville. And some towns, Montville only has 1 ballot. Other towns have multiple ballots for different districts. They might have different races and candidates on them. There also might be a front and back side of a ballot, both with potentials to fill in the bubbles. So we could go to this ballot and we could determine the exact candidate names, and we could determine the parties of those candidates, which are not always put in on the official audit reports. So that's the Board of Assessment Appeals. That's the BAA that we saw. So the first thing we want to do is put in the ballot counts for the audits, and that's on the top of the form. And in this case, it's only on the page 1 form. We'll go to that, and that is 334 ballots. And if we have an equal amount of counts for the tape count and the count in the audit, then we can just put in the ballot count for the tape, and when we save the information, it will automatically make the ballot count for the audit equal to tape count. If they're not equal, we have to put both numbers in, and we must check the box not equal. Also, there's a section here to put in translated official comments from the bottom of the audit form, and in this case, human error is what they said in there. I put in comments that have to do with actual explanation of what made counts inaccurate. They might say human error, act of God, etc. I don't put in comments where they're just explaining the questionable vote totals have to do with incorrectly marked bubbles, etc. I'm not interested in those comments. I'm interested in other comments that they might have. So now I'm going to go and save the ballots in the comments, and you can see that it made the ballot count in the audit equal. So I'm going to start with the Board of Education. So I put in, and I could spell it out. I could do it more simply if I wanted to. And I hit the Add New Contest button, and it has my Board of Education. There's a drop down here which is frozen in the word local. When we have an even year election, we have local offices, we have statewide offices, we have congressional offices, and others that cross between towns. And when we choose that, we're able to put in a race, let's say for U.S. Senator, and we only have to put it in once for the whole state, and it will appear with the correct candidates in every municipality. This year we have no races that cross municipalities. Next thing we want to do is select that race, which will allow us to enter candidates. So the first candidate is Nevada. And actually, we can see from the audit report here that that is a cross-endorsed candidate with a Republican, and the other party says IFM. I'm not sure what IFM is, so I'm going to look at that ballot image again to see what that party happens to be. We can see that's called the Independence for Montville Party. That's a rather unique local party, I assume. So what we put in here is the second party, and we're going to call it Other Local Party. And we'll see when we add the new candidate that they're listed with both of those parties. We do not have to put in unknown. We just put in the major parties that cover each of the candidates. Okay, so we have one more candidate to add. That's Mr. Smith. All of the Democrats were not class endorsed, so we only put in the Democratic candidate. So we now have all of the candidates for that Board of Education race listed. If later on we determine that we made a mistake here, we could go back and add another candidate. If we put a candidate in the wrong party, we might have to select that candidate and delete them and put them in again in the correct party. Now over here in the second window, we have the images of the audit reports associated with the town. And in this case of Montville, we have two images. One thing I probably should have mentioned earlier is many towns have more than one district being audited. So we should be very careful when there's more than one image to make sure the image we're working on is with the correct district, not one of the other districts being audited. If you should put a whole district in, all the data in, and then discover you were using the wrong district, let me know about that, and I can actually correct that so that you do not have to put all the data in a second time. So here we are on the next page. We can see all those with our drop down up at the top, and we're going to put in the Board of Assessment Appeals and the Board Zoning Board, the ZBA. What we go back and go into the contest line here, and we'll put in Board of Assessments and add that new contest and select that, and then put in the candidates for the Board of Assessment Appeals. Okay, now we've entered all three races, all of our candidates. I like to do it in that order so I can just focus on getting the races and the candidates in, and then I can separately focus on putting the results in. So to put the results in, I'm going to start backwards with the ZBA. It doesn't matter. I could start with any of the races. But by selecting any candidate in the race, I actually get a data entry form that covers all of the candidates for the race. And here we have it happens to be the Republican candidates in this particular town. They're all cross-endorsed by another party, and it automatically makes 3 lines for data entry from the audit report for the, in this case, the Republican, the other local party, and the unknown votes. Each one of those corresponds to a line in the official report. And in this case, in this town, all the Democratic candidates are not cross-endorsed, so there's only one data entry line provided for them. So this also has some automatic features in it, and that is if there are only undisputed votes and there are questionable votes and all the totals match, all I have to do is put in the undisputed number, and when I say save votes later on, all the numbers will be put in correctly. And unfortunately for Mr. Pike, the tape numbers and the other ones do not match. He has 51 on the tape, and they got counted 50 undisputed, and they have no questionable totals. Here he has 9 for the unknown. Rest of the totals here quickly for Mr. Zambor. Once again, they don't agree. And Mr. Gladys needs everything put in because the totals don't agree, and he also has some questionable votes. Actually, we did not put in the totals for the undisputed and questionables into the total hand count unless they made an error in arithmetic. Those should always come out correctly. And now let's push the Save Vote button, and we'll see that all of those numbers are put in correctly. You should quickly check over and make sure you haven't made any mistakes. If you do make a mistake, then you just go back and you have to correct all the items on a particular line and then save votes again. We also have this More button associated with each count. Let's say that they made an error that was obvious, an obvious error in the form. We check off error in form. And if we fixed it here, let's say they made an arithmetic error and it was obvious what it is, then we would also check fixed here and we'd make a comment to that effect. It will not let us put in totals that do not balance from the undisputed and the questionables. If they don't add up to the hand count total, it will not let us put that in. It'll give us an error message unless we check that field for error in form. Okay, so we're done with this particular race, and now we want to check the Board of Assessment Appeals, and we go to that. Once again, we select any candidate, and it shows us all of the races, or excuse me, all of the candidates and all the data entry by selecting any one candidate. So we're going to now finish the job of data entry for Montville for the 2 more races. So we're just finishing up all of the candidates and races for Montville. Now I want to bring your attention again to the right-hand screen, and the right-hand screen is the district recap. It's a good idea when you are done with doing data entry for a particular district to go through and look over the results and briefly compare it to the forms and check to see that your data is accurate. Notice that we've also added up the totals for each candidate, and that's where we look at what the percentages of differences are between what the machine said and what the hand audit did. So you'll notice on this race, even though we had differences mostly in the range of 1 or 2, they do sometimes add up to as much as 1.3%. Look very carefully at large errors, because my experience is in data entry, a lot of times when there's a large difference over here, either the absolute difference or the percent difference, I want to check my data entry very carefully because that's where it's more likely that I transpose some digits or some other things. And once you're satisfied with that, then when we go up to this section here that says Set Status, and needs input is the status, which indicates that a particular town is ready for this initial data entry. So the final thing after doing and checking your data entry is to go up to this drop down and change the status from needs input to verify for this particular town. And what that means is that someone else should be looking for the towns to verify, and then looking in these two right-hand windows and in very detailed way checking each of the items to make sure the items on the images of the official audit report match what the data entry has accomplished. Person, if they see an error, should change the status of to correct here, and then you'll see that there's a line in here for should change the status to correct, and then go over to the status log and write in the reason for that. Candidate Smith has incorrect questionables, or something to that effect. And then type save ballot counts and comments. If I'm verifying it and I notice an error, I should do two things. One would be to make a comment as to what the error might be. For instance, let's say Novetta incorrect Republican questionables in this field called status comment, and then change the status to correct, and that will put a note for the person who might want to look and correct that item. Or if you notice that problem yourself, you could just go in and correct it and put the status back to verify. And then finally, if your job is to verify, then you find districts that have the mark of to verify on them, and then you change the status, okay, verified, okay. But for instance, it will not let the same person verify it as the last person that updated the information for that particular town. So that pretty much covers it. Once again, if you find interesting towns and you have a problem either with the system or have a question about how to data enter a particular situation, please feel free to give me a call or email me. I'm committed that this system work, and any serious problems I will fix this year, and others maybe they'll have to wait for next year. And thanks so much again for being willing to do the data entry.